Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Virginia, and today I am back with another summer DIY. Today I am bringing you brand new lemon themed DIYs. I think these are perfect for the summer. They're super fresh looking, so I think I'm definitely going to use some of this decor around my house right before I switch to the more patriotic decor for 4th of July. So starting off this craft, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted the background to be. I loved the black and white striped paper, and originally I thought I was gonna do it on one of the Dollar Tree cutting boards, but you'll see after I cut it out, I just did not like the way that this was coming together. I don't know if the actual Dollar Tree cutting board was a little too farmhouse, and then the black and white was too modern for me. But either way, I decided that I did not like it, and that's okay in crafting. That's why you want to figure out hopefully what you like before you start putting the hot glue down, which I did in this case, so I was lucky. I decided instead to go with this little canvas from a Dollar Tree. It was covered in some burlap, but I decided to cover it in this paper. I've had it for a while. I think I did another farmhouse DIY with it. So I just put down a little bit of hot glue all down the front of it, and then also some on the top so that none of the paper would pop up. This next part is a very much trust the process, so I needed to trace out a lemon onto some scrapbooking paper. This is very thick scrapbooking paper. I started off by drawing a circle, then making the circle a little bit bigger, doing kind of like this elongated M at the top, and then making a little nub on the bottom of it. And it looks crazy, but I promise that once I actually cut it out and flip it so you can't see any of the drawing lines, it really looks like a great lemon shape. So this technique worked. I Googled how to draw a lemon, and it said a circle, you do the M at the top and a little nub at the bottom, and I think it came out pretty well. Then I covered it entirely in yellow paint. This one's called just yellow by Folk Art. And because this is paper, I just went in with a pretty thin coat because I didn't want the paper to pop up or get warped too much. Next, I'm going to place this on top of our black and white striped canvas, and I had some of this lemonade ribbon. I think I've had it for about 2 years now. I got it from the Dollar Tree, so it was the perfect excuse to actually use it, and I'm going to be doing a cinched bow. So you just take a piece of ribbon and basically create a loop with it. When you're working smaller, you don't need to add hot glue like me because you'll go in with some more ribbon, and then super simple, you just cinch it in the middle. Again, you would want to go in with some jute or another kind of ribbon to tie it off, but for this one I wanted the lemonade and all the cute little sayings that it has on it on that ribbon to kind of be the focal point, so I just adhered it with some hot glue instead of cinching it with that jute. And then lastly, it was time to just start hot gluing everything together. I have some burlap ribbon that I made an X out of, and for the leaves on our lemon, I have some green felt fabric, so I just cut out pretty much what kind of look like bunny ears and placed those on top of the burlap ribbon. And then to hide the edges of where our felt leaves were, I placed the ribbon that I showed you guys how to turn into a bow right on top of that. That way you don't see any of the raw edges of the leaves, and it really looks like it's coming right out of our lemon. Next one I think is my favorite. I had a lot of fun with this 2 weeks ago when I made my faux stuffed strawberries, and just as much fun making some lemons. I'm having a lot of fun with fabric DIYs this summer. I don't usually work too much with fabric, but it's been a lot of fun. So I cut out 3 lemon shapes, basically circles that have a little bit more of an oval shape at the bottom there. And you can definitely sew this. Or if you want to be a little more precise with your hot glue, instead of like me where I'm just gluing the kind of bad sides of the fabric together, you could glue it with the pretty sides of the fabric and then turn it inside out. That tends to work a little bit better when you're sewing though, because the hot glue does pull apart pretty easily. So if you're gonna sew, you can definitely sew, the pretty sides of the fabric together and then pull the fabric through. But to be a little bit faster and I think a little bit more friendly to a hot glue gun user, I just laid down the hot glue around the edges, leaving the top part open, and then put the other piece of fabric on top and just kind of held it down until the glue dried. Then once your glue is completely dried, and you really want to make sure it's completely dried with the hot glue, because if you start stuffing the lemon when it is not dry, it just kind of becomes a disaster. I went in and started filling up my lemons with some of this fill that I picked up from the Crafter Square section. I used the same green felt for my lemon leaves as I did in the first DIY, folded the fabric in half so I could make the process a little bit faster and cut 2 at a time. And really my goal here was just to do bunny ears, and I thought that was a good leaf shape. Then I tucked down my felt leaves into that open part of my lemon, and taking a small clear elastic hair tie, I just tied it all together. You can definitely go in with ribbon or jute or even hot glue, but I'm going to be covering these with a bow, and I really like the clear elastic so it makes everything a lot less messy than the hot glue. But to cover up where you're going to be able to see that clear elastic, I grabbed some jute and just made really simple bows out of them like you would if you were tying your shoes. And this part you want to be careful on, because if you get the hot glue while it is super hot onto the elastic hair ties, it will pop them. A little bit of a good tip: if you were trying to get them out of your hair, you can take your curling iron or your hair straightener and the heat will immediately snap these little elastic bands, but not so great when you're crafting. So make sure you don't put the super hot glue right on them, or put it on the bow and then wait a little second or two until the glue gets a little cooler before you attach your bow on. This next DIY might be the easiest of the bunch, and we're using some recycled craft supplies for this one. This glass jar is actually an old candle. I pop it in the freezer once I'm done burning it, so that small bit of wax that's usually at the bottom of a candle, once it has been in the freezer for a while, it will just pop right out and you can use it for a DIY. I took a really thick piece of cardstock and measured it to fit inside my candle, both lengthwise and height. For this candle, it was about 9 inches long and 4 inches in width. And then I cut out a piece of yellow fabric to be that exact same length as well. I just added a tiny bit of blue tape to get the fabric to wrap around our heavy cardstock, and then I just popped it right into the jar. This way you don't have to use any Mod Podge when you're working with the fabric or hot glue. It just goes right around that heavy cardstock and fits perfectly into the glass candle jar. The image that I Mod Podge down onto the front of this jar is actually from a Dollar Tree calendar. It's one of the small images in the back when you can preview what all 12 months are going to look like. There was a month that had lemons on it, and it really fit the size of this jar perfectly. So I placed that right down in the center. And for a final touch, I wasn't sure if I wanted to add a label or anything. I originally thought it was, that's why I slipped that onto the raffia, but I decided to just go with a simple raffia bow. Our next DIY is going back to some YouTube crafting basics. I am going to be decorating a Dollar Tree sign and making it to fit with our summer lemon theme. I picked up this galvanized mason jar sign from the Crafter's Square section, and we are going to transform it into a delicious looking mason jar full of some lemonade. So for the border of this, I took a blue color, I believe it was called Pool, and I'm just painting all around the edges of the mason jar. Then I went in with a pale yellow color. This one is from Apple Barrel, and pretty much I'm just outlining where I want it to look like the lemonade is inside the mason jar. I went in with a small paintbrush and then back in with a thicker one, adding a couple of coats of this pale yellow color to really get the lemonade color as perfect as I could. I used my cutting machine and some vinyl to adhere the Hello Summer in cursive onto the front of the mason jar, but you can always just paint this on yourself, use sticker letters, or print it off and stick it on. That is actually what I am doing with these lemons and ice cubes. So I printed these images out. I just Google searched lemons and lemonade ice cubes, and I put these in a Word document and printed them onto some sticker paper. Then I cut them out using my scissors, and you can see me using my weeding tool there to peel off the backing and then just sticking them down. I am not the greatest painter or artist, so rather than having to draw on all of the lemons, I thought I would let my printer do the work. And I haven't done a DIY with sticker paper, I don't think, in a long time, so it was something a little different. To add a little bit more definition to the mason jar, I went in with some white paint just to add the ridges around the mason jar top, and then to also accent certain parts of the mason jar itself. After I threaded the jute hanger back through our sign, it came with this hanger, I went about making the bow for this. So I started off with some burlap ribbon. I'm going to be doing an X bow. They're super simple. You just cut out 2 strips and you make an X. So I have the burlap ribbon and then also this red gingham, and I made a double bow using some twine that I had. And to pull this all together, I'm just using some hot glue. You can always use a zip tie, especially if you're using a lot more ribbons. If you've seen any of my wreath DIY videos, I love using the zip ties to keep the ribbons in place. And then after I hot glued it all together, I got my super sharp scissors and I dovetailed the ends so they had a nice little accent on them. And really the final touch here is I wanted to add a straw. I was going to paint one at first, and then I remembered that I had these straws actually in my kitchen. So I went in, figured out the sizing that I wanted, cut it down, and then hot glued everything together. This next DIY is super simple, but I think what really makes it is adding some greenery and faux lemons to the background. If you want to transform your mantle or maybe have a fresh lemon area in your kitchen, I think these arches from the Dollar Tree are going to be your best friend. You can even glue a couple of them together to make a really long archway. I'm just using one for this. I ended up putting it on my fireplace mantle. I painted it a gray color and then went in with a dry brush and some white paint to give it that farmhouse look. I had a bunch of these tags. I actually got them for Christmas and I hadn't used them yet. So I had some lemon scrapbooking paper and I traced out the shape and then cut it out and glued it down onto the little wood sign and then hot glued it onto our arch. So as you can see, it's an incredibly easy DIY, but what I think really makes the biggest impact is because the arch has all of these holes through it, anything that you put behind it really just shines through. You could do strawberries if you want that. You could do lemons. There's all sorts of different things that you can do with it, but I think this is a great accent piece. It looks very farmhouse and I think a lot more expensive than $1.25. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, keep searching, keep creating.